So here to talk through this interesting killer Thermo-Sudoku puzzle by Michael Rios. It's called Sudoku Crew, and that's because we've got the two killer cages defining some boats with four oars in each case. The thermos are making a really nice visual pattern here. One of the boats looks a little heavier than the others with the 988 versus the 423 digits. We're going to find the logic flows in about the same way, that one comes in much faster than the other. So as we've been doing recently, we have my paper test solves. This is my first solve of the puzzle, and looking through the grid, I at least find that 21 cage more suspect at the start, and so I'm figuring out how to finish it out. I gotta get to 19 and 4 values, and I can't use 1 or 2. The minimum I can get in 4 with that constraint is 18 with 3, 4, 5, 6, so this is of course 3, 4, 5, 7. I'm checking the 22 quickly, but nothing to do there, and so now I'm really just trying to place 3, 4, 5, 7 these spots. That eighth column has 5 or 7 as a choice, but when you follow the thermometer out, it can only be that 5. Now saying where can the 7 go in that big cage? Only one spot. Where can the 3 and 4 go? Only one spot. I've got to make the 4 come up to a valid sum, and where it's extreme can just be 6. 4, 5, 6 is forced there, so these thermometers are very much in order. Is a kind of important trait of the grid at this point. I think I actually write that 5 much bigger. Yeah, there I am. It's actually the only value left that I can see that's still a middle value. It's a 5 or a 9 from a Sudoku sense, but 9 can't go there. Having put in the 9 from a Sudoku sense in the bottom box, you can put in that 6, put a 9 coming up. This is where in a variant puzzle you can sometimes look at too many different kinds of things, like only do the Sudoku or only do the thermo. This is where in a lot of YouTube commenters in these videos will say, well, didn't you just miss this super simple step? Probably. We're looking at whole sets of things. As I'm looking back at this, in a Sudoku sense, I really want to look through that center column where I've got 2 6s, 2 5s, 2 8s. I want to try to place those in the top box. I've finally now placed the 8 up top. It can't be along the middle of that thermo. Actually, more critically, because it would help me a lot in that 6 column, is if I looked at the digit 6 right now, 6 can't be in the thermo in the top cell in row 3, so 6 is at the top in row 1. I have at least though noted the bulb of that thermo has to be a 1 or a 2. It can't be as large as a 4, because then you can't make the middle of it work. The middle cell has a limit where it's 4 or smaller. It's actually a 2-4 cell. It looks like I have the 4 marked there. I can't exactly see the 2, but it's probably there. It's just a little light on paper. But still try to make some progress. I'm making some notes at the bottom. A little sloppy there, but that is a 6-9 pair. We'll get like a 3-5 pair over there. Let's see, actually looks like I wrote a 3-7 pair. It's not a 3-7 pair, but I'm skeptical because I'm looking above and seeing 2-4-7 has to go there, so I have to clean that up as a 3-5 pair. Let's see if I come back to the digit 1, which I just wrote in the center box. That would be one of the ways I sometimes walk backwards in my progress. At least I should be hopefully coming back to the center column, which is the most open. But if my pencil's hovering over to the right, I'm probably still thinking about how to sum up 22, and I'm seeing as anything very forced yet. There's a lot you can do by thinking about the 22 sum, but maybe not exactly at this moment. A key thing though, it looks like I have noted another 2-value cell with that 2, 3, and then a 2-value cell in the next spot in the thermometer with a 3, 4, ending with another 2-value with a 5, 8 along it. So that path is key. It got me back to then seeing how the 1 has a forced digit in that left center box. I'm now starting to write some of the sums for the 22. I'm at least seeing 2, 3, 4, 5, which I've written down. I'm seeing, is there a version of that sum that doesn't have a 1 in it? So I'm confirming I could place a 1 in the 4th cell in the 2nd row. And that is still true. Not yet coming back to finding the 6 in the middle, but I'm trying to mark some of the other values. 7, which is big. Looks like I now have, sorry, that should be a 2 with a 4. Looks like I wrote a 3 with a 4. One thing I often have is my numbers which are to the right of anything I'm writing. You both can't see it on camera, but it's the most common kind of error I make in making notations is I'll write something because I won't have scanned to the right of the grid. It's one of the few places when I've trained myself in puzzles. I'm better in computer steps, at least in not making mistakes from the right side, but there are other things I do better on paper than in computer because of the flexibility of the notations. So when I'm really spending more time practicing Sudoku, I'm noticing and correcting my errors with values to the rights. Anyway, long story short, I'm still really, really saddened in watching this video back. I've not placed that 6 in the 6th column or then worked off of it to place the 4. So I do get the 6. Let's see if I do even come back and get the 4. And it looks like no, I'm looking around the digit 6 again, and now I'm looking around other things. So I'm not getting the Sudoku looking steps in that 6 column, including there's a single spot the 4 can still go into. It's not going to do a ton, but it would help a little bit at the top. Looks like I'm still scanning around, but since my pencil's nowhere near the grid, it's not immediately clear where I'm looking. I'm probably thinking a little bit about the options at the top where I've got like the 5, 7 things. Like maybe I'm looking at like, is there a way that bulb in the 4th column in the 3rd row, like 7, 8, 9, does that incredibly extend upwards? It actually still does. It's more constraining in the sum, so I'm probably trying to think in my head, is there anything that actually matters about a 22 sum? 8's already in it, so 14's left over, so now it looks like I'm finally logging all that are there. I think 22 minus 8 forcing 14 in 4 cells starts with 5 ways to make it. 1, 2, 3, 8 though is excluded because the 8's already in there. So 1, 2, 4, 7, 1, 2, 5, 6. I've made an error in my first boxing. I've missed 1, 3. Let's see if I get it. 1, 3, 4, 6 is another option. There we are. We've come back to it. And 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 4 of 5 options that still remain at this stage of the puzzle. Across them, most of them have a 2 except for one of them. Most of 2 of them have a 3. Most of them have a 4 except for one of them. The fact that the 6 is already forced outside of that set if it's not in the 3rd column cage. I mean, there's some constraints on the sum. It's a little bit, I think, of a false trail to look at this moment, but there are some things to do with it, particularly around the digit 4. The more key thing it looks like I'm getting is some issues with what happens with the 4 placement. And I'm getting some of that by seeing if the 4 were in the lower spot, it's going to conflict with the 4-3 cell into the 2-3 cell, etc. So I'm doing some thermo powering, but I'm really not seeing a simpler way to do this. I'll show this in the PenPa edit tool after this video goes, but here's a case where I think I was definitely like lost a bit in my own notation, lost a bit with the extra glare I get from the desk's camera light that I'm using here, but I am finally seeing a 4 forced in that cell I just marked. That also should force some more 4s around it, but I'm still not writing them in, but a 4 in that 4-3 thermometer. A really key thing that's going to come from across, and you may say, how do I get this, is marking that 3 in first. So it's not past the 4, but then the only thing I mentally had noted, it's not on the paper, is 1, 2, 3 is a really bad set to put into that 22 cage, because again, 1, 2, 3, 8 plus 8 is broken. And the 3 going on the left side would force 1, 2, 3 in the center box and would break the 22 stage. And that's how I get the 3 over to the right. We'll talk about this when we go a little slower, but getting that 3, getting that 4, it now does force a specific form of the sum, which includes the 3 and a 4, will then force a 2, 5, because you can't have the 1, 6. The 6 is already out of that box. And so slow resolution of that last killer cage, but now it is just Sudoku steps to the finish, maybe a little bit with that thermo in the upper left, but most of the thermos as drawn are fairly constrained at this moment. That 8, 9 still needing a 5 in that box by Sudoku should get me to resolve the 5, 8. That 9 coming the top should also do a lot to give me some progress there. Let's see, the 6 I drew in. Another sign of like it sort of being poor Sudoku, the YouTube commenters in the lower right will have said a long time ago that is not a 6, 9 option in row 8. It's 9 on the left and 6 on the right, and that's absolutely true. Another thing is I practiced in the past about my space is like when you're struggling with a puzzle, please just check that the places you've written notes even pairs, like they're not just pairs. Some of them are resolved. I will never search vertically once I have that 6, 9 until I write a 9 or 6 above it, and that is actually set right now. Is another sign of some weakness. That's definitely slowing me in this puzzle, but these are just, random thoughts as I'm watching this video, thinking as a potential Sudoku coach with no clients right now about how to practice your own speed solving, and really like seeing where you're weak in some kinds of puzzles. That 9, 6 I could have gotten so much sooner because it was set from the early moments of the puzzle once that 5, 6, 7 thermo is filled in. Anyway, 5, 7 coming across, 7, 8 finishing out here. Last options there, the 8's the only thing for that thermo, and 2 and 5 to finish the top of the grid looking down below. Checking, I marked all the things. 9:35 is roughly the time for the solve, but in this case, just checking all the digits felt more critical, and so 9:45 is really the time post check, and then hitting stop on the clock. So let's shift off of the video and just go back and talk through some of the key highlights of the grid. Again, there's a way, the star of the puzzle, as shown in the paper video, maybe without the 6, is what's here. As we were just saying, it's actually better than that. 6, 9, in all these cases can be drawn in right away because that 6 there, but let's just ignore that. This is kind of how I had it in the paper. Recognizing once these 8 comes to the top, that a 6 comes up here. Really the top of this grid, including this shape, is made by trying to mark into these thermometers, and the 2 most key cells, I think, at least the ones I'll talk through, are the ones marked in green. Because of all the digits around this can't be any larger than a 4. And so 3 or 4 makes sense for it. 2 right now could make sense for it, but when we look back one cell, this can't be a 1. So this is constrained to be a 2, 3, and this is a 3, 4 cell. This is limited to be a 1, 2, or 4, just based off what's in the column. If it's a 4, what is this cell? So this cell can't be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not possible, so this is a 1, 2. So these were some of the things I got onto my paper that helped me get to the next stage of the solve. That's likely thinking then one step further into, say, this part of this thermometer, or even into sort of things past it. So this has a 3 over to the side, so this is a 2, 4 cage. And now the constraint will come from thinking about how to make the top of this work with all the 4s you need to place into it. So first, for sure, if this is a 1, 2 and not a 4, you can place this 4, this 2. But the critical thinking is coming more from trying to see how do you get these values to work together. So recognizing this has to be a 4, what breaks in this puzzle? If this is a 2, this is sometimes how I will work through this, is recognizing this is talking to this clue. If this is a 2, this is then a 3, and this is a 1, and then a 4 is somewhere in this column, but this being a 3 also puts a 4 right here. And so how are you going to make a 4 work in the space if the 4 is over to the right? Sorry, if a 4 is not in the cell. If a 4 is over here, this is forced to be a 3, this is a 2, this is forced to be a 2. So either way you can see it, this has to be the 4. Marking that as a 4, what we then got to in the video is recognizing a 3 is now specifically in one of these 2 cells. Let me go to a better color. And the only thing I was really very aware of with the 22 is that 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 8 is not the sum to get to. And so I did this too quick in the video, but I'll do it the same way here. If this is a 3, you immediately force a 2 and a 1, and that is an 8. And for a lot of reasons, the Sudoku repeat, the killer's cage repeat, that's no good. So this is a 3, this is a 4. Those values now complete that this has to be a 2 from Sudoku, this has to be a 1. We've got a 2, 9 coming in here. We have a 3 in this space. We've got 1, 5, 7. You can say, does the 1 go in this cell? Same issue. We can't have 2, 3, 1 in those spaces. So this is a 5, 7 set. But if you actually know how the sum works, the only way to get to 22 is 5 with 4, this being a 7. And now that the killer is done, the rest of this is really the thermo steps. You could have seen some of this in the videos. So the tough bits were really working through this top set, getting some of these by-value cells, seeing then the critical placements around the digit 4, and then eventually working through, after you get those 4s, this 3 in the set. At least that was my path through the solve. Happy to have others add their own comments to it, but hopefully you enjoyed seeing me sort of struggle through a puzzle, but I guess still do an okay solve. Under 10 minutes on this challenging Friday puzzle by Michael Rios. Thanks for the grid, Michael, and thanks for watching this video. We'll see you again soon.